Eyes are a pair of complex photosensitive organs that gather light and convert it into neural signals called action potentials. After light falls on the retina, this action potential reaches the brain through the optic nerve, and the brain interprets it as vision. Each eye consists of a globe called the eyeball. The shape of the eyeball is not spherical like a ball, but is an oblate spheroid. In a sphere, the horizontal diameter is equal to the vertical diameter, but in the case of an oblate spheroid, the horizontal diameter is greater than the vertical diameter. The anteroposterior length of the eyeball is about 24 millimeters or 2.4 centimeters, and its volume is about 6 milliliters. Eyeballs are located in a bony cavity within the skull called the orbit, which provides protection to the eyeball. The eyeball consists of 3 layers. 1. Outer fibrous layer. 2. Middle vascular layer, called the uvea or uveal tract. 3. Inner layer, called the retina. First, let's discuss the outer layer. The outer layer is a tough, fibrous, protective outer coat of the eye that maintains its shape and provides structural support. The posterior 5/6 of the outer layer is called the sclera, while the anterior 1/6 is called the cornea. In this image, which shows the front view of the eyeball, the white part is the sclera, while the dark part, which is the iris, is covered by the cornea. The junction between the cornea and the sclera is called the corneoscleral junction or limbus. The cornea is transparent, meaning that light can pass through it like glass, while the sclera is opaque, meaning light cannot pass through it. The second layer of the eyeball is called the vascular layer because it primarily consists of blood vessels. It has 3 parts. 1. Posteriorly, the choroid. 2. In the middle, the ciliary body. 3. Anteriorly, the iris. The aperture between the iris is called the pupil. In this diagram, all 3 parts of the middle layer are shown. Posteriorly, the choroid. In the middle, the triangular structure called the ciliary body. And anteriorly, the diaphragm-like structure called the iris. The aperture or space between the iris is called the pupil, through which light passes. The inner layer is called the retina, where light falls and is converted into neural signals that are sent to the brain through the optic nerve for visual recognition. The retina contains specialized photoreceptor cells called rods and cones. When light hits the retina, these rods and cones generate an action potential, which is transmitted to the brain through the optic nerve to form an image of the object. The fundus of the eye is the part of the retina that can be directly viewed during an ophthalmoscopic examination, fundoscopy. In the fundus of the eye, 2 areas can be seen. One is the optic disc, located nasally, which appears pale pink or light yellow. This area is where the optic nerve exits the eye, and it also shows the central retinal artery entering into the retina. The second area is the macula, located in the center of the retina, which contains the highest concentration of cone cells responsible for sharp visual acuity. In the retina, 3 types of cells are present in layers, from outside to inside: photoreceptor cells, bipolar cells, and ganglion cells. When light hits the retina, photoreceptor cells are activated, which then activate the bipolar cells, and the bipolar cells activate the ganglion cells. Remember that the axons of the ganglion cells form the optic nerve to carry action potentials to the brain. The initial part of the optic nerve is called the optic disc. Now, let's discuss the structures inside the eye other than the layers of the eyeball. First is the lens. The lens is a transparent, flexible, and convex structure located behind the iris and the pupil. From the ciliary body of the middle layer, specialized ligaments called suspensory ligaments arise and attach to the lens, keeping it in place behind the iris and pupil. For distant vision, the lens is flattened, but for near vision, the lens becomes more globular to increase its refractive power. This process is called accommodation. The second structure present inside the eyeball is the aqueous humor and vitreous humor. The eyeball is divided into 2 segments: the posterior segment, which is located posteriorly between the lens front and the retina back, and the anterior segment, which is located between the cornea, front, and the lens back. The vitreous humor, with a gel-like consistency, is present in the posterior segment of the eyeball. Its functions are to maintain the shape of the eyeball, support the retina, and transmit light to the retina. The anterior segment is further divided into 2 parts: the posterior chamber, located between the iris, front, and the lens back, and the anterior chamber, located between the cornea, front, and the iris back. In the posterior chamber, the ciliary processes, finger-like projections of the ciliary body, secrete a fluid called aqueous humor. This fluid flows through the pupil into the anterior chamber, providing nutrients to the avascular structures, such as the lens and cornea. It then drains into the canal of Schlemm, which is located at the corneoscleral junction.